you grow up with a NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Hello. This is not the regular Twig show, and that is because it is Turkey Day. It is Thanksgiving in Canada, and we were going to get together, Michael and myself, to record, but busyness ensued and family stuff, and we had our reviews already ready, and he's like, do we hold off a week? And we thought, no, we'll just release this as a review episode, so just with a quick intro and outro, because we didn't really have time to record an hour to 2 hours of news stuff. So this is going to be very quick. Our reviews are, I have a review of F9, the Fast Saga, both director's cut and theatrical editions on UHD. I also have a review of two of the most recent Criterion Collection releases, which are Love and Basketball and Mona Lisa. And Birdman has said that he had a review ready to go for the regular show this week, and that is what is it? Those Who Wish Me Dead. That's the Angelina Jolie movie. He has that from Warner Brothers on Bluray that he talked about. So we're sort of going to put these one after another. We'll alternate them in, and then I'll be back at the end, to sort of close out and give a sort of an idea of what programming is like this week. Things might be shuffled around because it's pretty busy and there's other stuff going on, but that's going to be it. Just a short little show here. I hope everybody's enjoying themselves, and make sure you give a listen and see if these are things that you might be interested in picking up yourself.
Basically, he was a geek, sir.
Leave me alone, geek boy.
Holy shit, you geeks are badass.
In the last week or two, I've received a couple new movies from the Criterion Collection, Mona Lisa and Love and Basketball. Now, Love and Basketball, I have heard of before. It came out, I think when I was in grade 8 or grade 9, and I do remember hearing, a fair bit about how it was like a good romantic sort of love story, but a little different, urban, yada, yada, yada. Here's the basic premise. Yes, it's a good film, obviously. But I'll just sort of read you the back description for it. Sparks fly both on and off the court in this groundbreaking feature debut from writer-director Gina Prince Blythewood. So it's about two people that love basketball, and they live next door to each other. They flirt back and forth. They're playing games. There's high pressure involved. Their lives. It's very well regarded. It's very deep. You do get a lot of backstory. It's nuanced. It's not one-dimensional. It's what you'd expect if Criterion Collection has selected it to be an important picture. It's got a fantastic soundtrack, R&B from the era that just melds well with every scene. Like, it was very meticulously picked for this. It is a very well put together, and I'm not a love story movie kind of. That's just not my jam usually. It's very well done. It's got a 4K presentation, remastered. It's not in 4K, obviously. It's been downsampled to 1080p, which is, a shape. We're seeing some Criterion Collection releases coming out very soon in 4K, so we're going to have to be checking those out soon too to see, just how high they're going to raise the bar. But they've hit the peak, I think, right now of what a modern film can look like at 1080p if done right through the medium. Like they've maxed it out. They can't go higher than these films. It's got a 5.1 surround soundtrack, which does use the back channels quite well for the music scenes and for some of the background sound effects. There are a ton of behind-the-scenes features, obviously a little booklet involved as well. There's a couple short films in here that were interesting. Audition tapes. It's got the whole shebang. It's very, very well made. If you were a fan of this, 20 years ago when it came out, it's had releases here and there, but this is going to be, right now, the definitive release of the picture. So it's worth checking out for that. Mona Lisa, obviously, I'm like, who's in it? Neil Jordan. I know the director. And I went, oh, okay. It's got Michael Caine and Bob Hoskins in it, and Kathy Tyson. And I went, I love Bob Hoskins. Even in the bad movies he's in, he's always good, right? Well, this is a different picture. It's about the underworld of London. It's sort of noir. It is a love story, but it has that. It's from 1986, but it's got that feel of like a 40s, 50s movie. It is about a guy who's released from prison. He's hired by a mob boss played by Michael Caine, obviously. He's supposed to transfer or drive a call girl between high-paying clients. So it's think of it a little bit like, it's, even though it's not really the same, it's a little bit like Collateral. It's a little bit it's a little bit like The Transporter, a little bit, but obviously, earlier than that and set sort of in like the crime world of the of the time. It is very well acted, obviously. A lot of British films in the 60s, 70s, and even into the early 80s kind of had a certain cheaper look. This doesn't have that. This has a very Hollywoodish look to it, which I always like. It is, again, well put together. This is a 2K restoration, so it's not at 4K. So there's more film grain here. It's not quite as detailed as previously. Now, it might just be that because of the material they used to scan it, it was not available to do a 4K remastering. Obviously, it's pretty much the best. 2K is slightly higher resolution than 1080p. 1080p is like 1920 by 1080, and I believe it's like 2560 by 1080, but then that's when they scan it and do the editing, and then it's then recomposed for the proper aspect ratio for a Blu-ray. So it's, ever so slightly higher quality than if they had just scanned it at 1080p to begin with. There's audio commentaries involved here. There's new conversations that they recorded in 2015. So new in quotes, new for the film, I guess right around the time its 30th anniversary of theatrical runs. There's some interviews at the Cannes Film Festival from 1986, subtitles plus an essay, obviously. The aspect ratio, it's your standard matte 1.85:1 ratio, so you're going to have slight bars at the top and bottom of your screen. It is in mono, but it is a lossless audio track. So, if you're not hearing stereo separation, it's because it doesn't have it. But, which was still common at the time for a lot of British pictures. Stereo had been standard for quite some time at that point, starting in the late 70s with American movies. But this was, still firmly entrenched in the British style of filmmaking. Everything is clear. You can hear all the dialogue. It is a well mixed for a mono track, but it's I would say serviceable. It's still going to be obviously the best version of this film released, and it's worth picking up if you're a fan of the noirish style of crime movies, especially ones from the 1980s.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here, and I'm here to talk to you about one of the latest releases from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment, and I'm talking about Those Who Wish Me Dead, starring Angelina Jolie. A review copy was provided to us. We will be looking at this on Blu-ray and digital code. So this is a movie that I had literally no idea existed, although evidently it did have a limited theatrical release, was also released on HBO Max, and now you can own it. So what is this movie about? Well, the Tomb Raider and the Punisher kind of team up to fight the assassins Littlefinger and Beast from X-Men First Class and randomly Tyler Perry. Long story short, there's this forensic accountant who was also in Dawn of the Dead 2004 and Star Trek Discovery most recently. He learns some really terrible things. His boss is killed. He goes on the run with his son. Shenanigans ensue, and the kid has to survive after his father is killed. This all happens in the first 15-20 minutes, not really a spoiler. And then that's where Angelina Jolie's character comes in, named Hannah. She's a former smoke jumper / firefighter who evidently has some PTSD after some people died. And her ex-boyfriend, the Punisher, aka Ethan in this movie, kind of says, hey man, you got to get your kind of head on straight. I don't want you to do anything dumb. It's almost like she has a death wish. And yeah, that happens more than a few times in this movie, where the unrealistic sort of happens, but that's kind of the charm of this movie. This is an hour-and-a-half throwback to the direct-to-DVD action movies you would see come out in the 90s or into the early 2000s. And if you don't think of it as anything deeper than that, this is actually rather entertaining. Now, this is a complete sidebar here. I would like to know who the armorer was on this movie, because there were a number of interesting firearms in this, most notably wielded by Beast and Littlefinger. Just interesting choices in guns, so I thought that was actually kind of cool. And this is not the first smoke jumper movie I've reviewed. Oddly enough, I reviewed Playing with Fire last year, which was the John Cena comedy that came out last year. Obviously, this one is a lot more serious, and this one is also rated R. And there is some violence in this. There's actually 1 or 2 gory kills, but mostly for language. They say the word fuck in this a lot, to the point of almost Rob Zombie levels of comical at times. So there's only one special feature on this, and it's sort of the making of, and I was actually rather surprised how much this was actually practical effects, and how New Mexico had to substitute for northern Montana as a set location, and the fire in the movie that happens at the end of it, that's practical. I was actually really surprised to learn that. And that special feature is only about 15 minutes or so I don't really know what else they could have dragged out of this if they wanted to do more special features. Those Who Wish Me Dead, it's not a bad movie. It's not a great movie. It's the perfect movie for a rental, if you want to stream this, or wait for it to pop up on Netflix, or if you happen to be in the States, I'm pretty sure this is available on HBO Max right now. It's honestly a pretty good way to kill 90 minutes. It's actually a pretty good date movie. Is it worth owning? No, just because there isn't a lot of meat to it, but it's worth seeing. It's actually surprisingly entertaining. And one more little sidebar. When Angelina gets a particular type of injury in this movie, the makeup and the attention to detail is surprisingly consistent with what I've heard what happens to people who do happen to get this particular type of injury. And I was like, that's some neat attention to detail, so thank you for that. So Those Who Wish Me Dead on Blu-ray and digital code from Warner Bros. Home Entertainment gets the recommendation of, you could probably stream this or rent this, and it's worth your time that way.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
It's all about family. F9, The Fast Saga, was sent over on 4K Ultra HD from our friends at Universal Pictures. Now, this is a set that, as stated, is a 4K release that also includes a standard Blu-ray disc as well. It includes both the theatrical cut, which I did see in theaters. It was actually the first movie I went and saw in theaters after was it 9 or 10 months almost that all theaters in Ontario were closed. And when I went to see it, so far, I've seen other films in theaters. This was the one that filled out the most. Obviously, during restrictions, only so many people could be there. But it seems to be the film that people showed up for the most in the last 6 months, even. Which, wasn't a surprise. People wanted a big popcorn flick. People wanted to see, how this was going to go. I have been waiting for this for quite some time since we saw the initial teaser trailer drop was a few years back now. The series has become a go-to for my family. Now, I have family members that are more immunocompromised than myself that would normally have seen it in theaters, and they didn't get a chance. So now they can finally check it out on home video. So I ended up having them over. We ended up popping in the 4K disc, and I can tell you, watching the director's cut, it's about 7 minutes longer. It adds a little bit of scenes here and there. It's nothing critical to the plot, obviously. This wasn't like a movie that had like a hatchet job attached to it where they just, they took away the director's vision. No, it's more like they trimmed some things here and there to fit a certain time that they wanted to hit in running feature time. And adding it in just adds a little bit of flair here and there. So it's nothing super crazy, but it does give it a better, well-rounded character feel. A little bit more to the backstories, a little bit more interactions, and it's a very welcome addition. I can say that for sure. Now, it also includes a digital code, which gives you access to the 1080p copy of it as well. Now, as far as features go, there's a gag reel, there's a behind-the-scenes couple featurettes, there's a fair bit of them, actually. A day on the set with Justin Lin, there's a feature on John Cena being a big fan of supercars. There's a commentary with Justin Lin as well, which is always really appreciated to see how just the visual planning that has to go into a film like this. It looks phenomenal in 4K Ultra with HDR on. I have a Dolby Vision capable television. I do not have a super high-end OLED television. I have what I would say, if you're getting a Dolby Vision television and you are not, made of money, you're probably getting something in the sub $1,000 range. And that is what I have. I have a TCL 6 Series 65-inch television, which is what you would consider to be, I would say, phenomenal regular HDR performance. And when you're looking at Dolby Vision, it is on the adequate to it is very well made category. It's pretty much as good as you're going to get for the price until you make that huge expensive jump to OLED. So, I have a keen eye, and I can tell when something is different from the cinematic experience. And I can say this, the tone mapping that they did here is spot on. If I had an OLED TV, you would not be able to tell the difference between seeing it theatrically and seeing it here. And when I saw it theatrically, it was on a good digital screen. It was, not one of the cheapy old ones. It was actually a decent presentation. So I can say this, the home release does the job of representing what you would see in the theatrical experience. Whether or not you like these films, at this point, when you're 9 films in, if you're picking this up, you know what you're in for. Ridiculousness. And in fact, this is the film in the series where they're finally starting to poke fun at their own near invincibility. and it was a welcome addition to add some levity to it, because there's only so much your brain can take before you go, hey, this is ridiculous beyond even. And it doesn't take itself too seriously, while at the same time keeping the suspense and the stakes. You don't know who they're going to kill off. It's like a superhero movie, so eventually people are going to come back, unless they're unfortunately gone, like in real life, like Paul Walker. But you have friends returning, you have new long lost relatives. It's become the big yo bro action soap opera telenovela out there, and I can't wait to see what they do with hopefully 10 more or 9 more features, whatever they do in the future. It's a pretty solid release. You do get, like I said, the digital copy, you get the standard Blu-ray, and you get the ultra high def Blu-ray as well. So, if you're like me and you have, I know it's a rarity that I'm somebody who has two different 4K ultra disc players, in that I've got the Xbox Series X and I've got the PlayStation 5, plays well in either. So if you're somebody who doesn't have a 4K player yet, it's still good because they're giving you the regular disc that came with, like, the Blu-ray disc and a digital copy. So you're kind of future-proofing yourself for if you do pick up a new console. Or, here's a hot tip, if you're wanting to watch this in 4K with everything, go out before they're completely stopped being sold and pick up a Xbox One S. Yes, that is the last gen Xbox One. Get any of them that have a disc drive, which I think the cheapest one you can find, if you find it used or even new, is the 500 gigabyte model, because that has a 4K Ultra disc player built in. And when you pick it up, it's the same price as buying a separate dedicated 4K player from somebody like a Samsung or an LG. So, and you're getting a full game system involved with it as well, with more firmware updates and so on. So that's just a hot tip if you want to get it that way. But otherwise, if you're somebody who's already got a 4K setup that is ready to go with an ultra disc player, this is one of the better looking releases I've seen so far this year.
Those magnificent bastards! Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that is going to do it on our very shortened episode that we just wanted to make sure we got out. So, what we have coming up this week, there are 2 episodes currently scheduled still for our Earth versus Soups episodes. Now, as we mentioned on our previous show last week, I have a batch of probably 15 or 20 episodes, maybe even more, to edit, and I'll be slowly making my way through that, so we'll be sure that we have plenty of episodes coming up in the future. We are tentative, knock on wood, knock behind me, recording a new episode on Cronenberg Week 2. That might be closer to the end of the week, and that's going to be on David Cronenberg's 80s horror films, which include Scanners, Videodrome. We're going to briefly touch upon The Dead Zone and The Fly, but those are sort of more mainstream, so we're not going to necessarily... I'll probably watch The Fly because I haven't seen it before, but we're just going to very briefly talk about that, as well as the probably most, or one of the most underseen films of his, which is Dead Ringers. And then following week, we're going to do a couple films from the 90s and a couple films from the 2000s to round out Cronenberg month. And maybe we'll revisit some of his other features eventually, but it's just sort of to give a bit of a sampling of all the different types of movies that he's made in the past. And that'll be fun. We've also got... Birdman's working on a few other things too, but I know he's working on School. He's working on his Aboriginal 60s scoop stuff and some advocacy, and just a lot happening for what should be a relaxing week for a stat holiday week. But we'll see there. As far as what I'm doing, I'll probably give my impressions. I'm seeing the new James Bond movie and Venom 2, or what is it, Venom Let There Be Carnage, back to back, first double feature in like over a year or two. I'll be seeing that this week, and actually I'm probably going to have to watch Venom, the first movie, very shortly because I haven't seen it first before going to see the sequel. And I guess movie season's really picking up, so I'll be seeing a few more of them. I've got my tickets for Dune, and I should be getting an Eternals ticket eventually in the next week or so. And there's maybe a couple other pictures. There's a few Canadian features that I want to see, but I'm waiting to go to see it at my local art house theater because it seems more appropriate than going to the big corporate place for that. But that's pretty much it. As far as games go, we have pretty much covered everything. I think Birdman is working on Metroid Dread. That should be on next week's show. And he also has... What else does he have? I think he has another game he's working on. But I've completely caught up on everything. We're going to be releasing a prototype episode in a day or two, and that is going to be a discussion on Far Cry 6 and our review of that, because we both received copies. and Birdman's just on the cusp of finishing it, so he's ready to go on that very soon. I am waiting on a few game inquiries for review for things for our gift guide that are going to be coming up. Not 100% sure what we're getting on there. There's some big titles coming at the end of the month, but then it's going to be weird. Like there's going to be a grouping of a few games that we're going to review, and there might be some that we are not. And then in November we'll see what happens, but it's going to be probably more movie and book reviews for the next week or two, now that some of these big titles that came out at the beginning of October have been finished and worked on. But that's going to do it. Hope everybody in Canada at least has a happy Thanksgiving. I think in the States was Columbus Day, but obviously there's negative connotations and with that name, and I think isn't it sort of called what are they calling it? Indigenous Peoples Day or something like that, similar to our Truth and Reconciliation Day. Regardless, whatever it is, if it's a holiday where you are, or if it's in Europe, just spend time with your family, be thankful for your health, your family, remember the good times, but also as Birdman's not here, but he would say maybe do a little research into your country's history of colonialism and all that stuff. I'm not the best person to speak on that, but just be excellent to each other, as Birdman would say. I hope everybody is very safe and happy, and if you are going to be drinking, if it's a long weekend where you are, drive safe, as in take a taxi. All right, bye-bye, everybody.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.